Hello, beautiful beings. Welcome to Y'all Asked for This, where enough people have been like, hey, why don't you have a podcast? Hey, you should start a podcast. And I was like, I do love yapping, so here we are. If you are new to me, hey, hi, hello. I am Jessie. I am just a person who freaking loves people so much and just wants to extend that love to you and hopefully let it rub off on you a little bit to have more love for yourself and just more love and compassion for other people as well. On episode 1, holy moly, we are going to talk about awareness because it is just one of those things that once you start tapping in and start playing with it, it literally just like unfolds your entire life because you can use it with every avenue, every aspect of your life. So let's talk about it. Awareness, like I said, it can be applied to just every aspect of your life, whether you are looking at your work, your relationships, pain in your body. Things can be as simple as being like, oh, I'm just standing funny and I just need to stop doing that. Or, hey, I'm just standing funny and I need to stretch and strengthen in whichever kind of way. Really, it's like the first step to getting things into a shifted state. I don't want to say it's like into a better state because they don't really operate in good and bad. It's just kind of in a shifted state that might feel more aligned for you, might make things flow a little better, might make things have less pain and more happiness. Doesn't mean that sadness and stuff doesn't exist. It's just maybe you'll be able to live a little bit more in that happy state. I want to talk about this because there are so many people that when they meet me or when they're new to me, they're just kind of like, there's just like something about you. Like you're just different, something different, or they'll be like, there's something like spiritual about you. And I'm kind of like, yeah, it's because I have dove in and I do the work and it's a process. It's a kind of a never-ending process and it makes it a little fun in my perspective to have it just be a never-ending process because we know that when you get to a point of satisfaction, it only lasts so long. Embracing the journey is something that just makes life magical. So let's make life magical. Ways to kind of start diving into your own awareness. First, I want to say that being present in the moment. These are going to be such simple little tools and tricks, but applying them can kind of be a little bit difficult sometimes because our nervous system likes what it knows. We live in an age of being like distracted and just having everything at our freaking fingertips. So sometimes it can be a little bit more difficult than we want it to be, but just like going to the gym and building muscle or wanting to lose weight or something, like it is still a process, and sometimes we're super steady and sometimes we slide back sometimes, and all of it is okay. And embracing each part of that is also just being aware and being like, hey, I see myself doing that, and like that's okay. It's okay. I know I'm gonna get back on track, and this is me getting back on track. But first things first, to kind of start the awareness process, it's really about being present. Quieting the noise a little bit. You don't even have to necessarily quiet the noise. You can still be scrolling on social media, but allowing yourself to be present in what you're seeing as opposed to just being like derp, 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 and scrolling along. You might stop and notice that something makes you feel a certain way, or you might just be like, I don't freaking want that anymore. Like having those moments of just like slowing down kind of brings you back into the present moment and lets you tap more into yourself. This is really just like tapping into yourself and getting to know yourself in a way that we've all kind of been conditioned out of. And I say conditioned out of, but really we are little squishy humans when we first come to this beautiful place called Earth. And we have to be conditioned. We have to learn how to survive. We have to learn how to operate in group settings so that we can like collectively evolve with people and work with people. Even though I feel like conditioning has taken on this more negative connotation, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's really just these are the tools that you've been given, and now it's up to you to decide which ones you want to keep and which ones you want to get rid of. And again, all of this is just having the awareness of being like, this doesn't actually feel good to me, and really owning that within yourself. So really just kind of like slowing down and being more present with the things that you're doing, the people that you're talking to. I can honestly say that I have a friend that whenever I talk to him, it's just like things are always popping off. But like in that moment, I can't decipher things. Not until I'm in my car or I'm back home that I'm like, son of a, that was me operating out of like my pattern, and whatever he said had like full energy block, hit a freaking wall for myself. And it was almost like that was my moment in real time to kind of shift things to releasing that pattern. But because like patterns are really strong, just kind of continue to go along with it. But again, just having the awareness initially is going to be that first step. So now that I know that that's really what's happening, when it happens again, because God, I know it will, I'll be able to be like, whew, and like take a second, let there be an awkward freaking pause, and then move forward in whatever way that I really want to move forward in. Releasing the things that I honestly don't agree with. So being present is super important in those conversations, even in your scrolling. Really present, really conscious of what you're taking in and just how it's making you feel is a really easy first step. I find that like social media is actually super easy to play with this with, because nobody gets a notification if you unfollow somebody or like an account. If you find that you're just like, I don't care about this, then unfollow them. It's creating more energetic space for things that you do want to come in when you start releasing out all of this stuff that doesn't actually make you feel good, that you don't really want to be seeing, or that is just like bogging you down. When you start clearing it out, you also create the space to let new things and better things for you come in. So really slowing down is definitely step one. Super easy, sometimes not so easy. But again, it's just like practicing as it comes. It might last 5 minutes, it might last 2 minutes. You might notice it in the beginning. You might want it to happen a little bit more, and you can just kind of like focus, and then your brain will go off, and like that's okay. It's kind of like meditation, how people think that like you have to be in this super quiet, calm space and do it for 20 minutes for it to be effective. That's something you build up to, and honestly, thoughts still come in. It's just being able to be like, hey thought, I see you there. That's not where we are. I'm gonna come back into my body at this point in time. Really, a lot of this is like tapping into your body and getting out of your mind, because your mind is kind of like a program, and it's programming your nervous system as well, which is why like the quote that's something like, you'll pick a familiar hell before doing like a different heaven or whatever, is something like that. You know which quote I'm talking about. But it's true, because your mind and your brain are kind of like an algorithm. It's taking in all of the information, it's taking in your conditioning, and it's pulling even from the subconscious level, and it's going to help you like repeat a pattern because it's familiar. Change is just as stressful on your nervous system as going through the same BS's. So it's kind of like picking which way you want to go. Do you want that change? Or do you want to just go through the same patterns and just kind of live in that same meh kind of state? I know we all want to change, which is why it takes baby steps, so then your nervous system isn't like freaking the fuck out. Another really solid thing for having awareness about yourself is really getting to know you. And personally, the tools that I think are super beneficial are human design and astrology. I prefer human design. It just makes more sense in my brain. I do readings for that. That's like how much sense it makes in my brain. And astrology is also really fascinating. But I feel like for astrology, just hitting like the superficial stuff is a little bit misleading sometimes, because it's like we have our big three, but there's so much depth in your chart that your big three is just literally the surface layer. So it's definitely like diving in. I feel like for astrology, get a reading because it's a lot of information to take in. I've done that before I was even on this path that I've been on for a while, and I remember them being like, oh, this life is about you, and I was like, I'm sorry, what? No. That feels very incorrect. That feels very uncomfortable to me because I'm so like or I was such a put everybody else first. What I want, what I need doesn't matter as long as everybody else is happy. I'm a Libra sun, so that's why I kind of operate in this like balanced state for I want everybody to win. That's all actually what I'm supposed to be moving away from, because you have North and South node in astrology as well, and that's what she was pulling from, is where my North node is and what I need to lean more into. So it was just funny because it's just like, no, but now using my tools from human design, I feel like I've like naturally stepped into that space, and it doesn't feel bad in any kind of way. It's just kind of like, oh no, focusing on myself and doing what I want is actually still helping and giving to all of the people that I wanted to give to anyway. It's just, I also feel good. Which awareness will be like, a lot of us are taught that we have to struggle for something and that we shouldn't feel good, or that we should feel bad, like, for feeling good, because everything else, and it's just like there's so many layers to this awareness thing. But this is just going to be like to start us out. Please, just to start us out, because it's so simple because it can get applied to everything, but because it can be applied to everything, it makes it so complex that it will almost have that effect of overwhelm. And then personally, this is how I've operated in the past, if not still working through it. But it's like these possibilities are all so overwhelming because there's so many of them. So then I just freeze and I don't do shit. So again, that's just like an awareness thing that you start to work with, and then you dial yourself back in, start taking the baby steps. But astrology is really fascinating to kind of dive into. It tells you just a lot about yourself. Like, I know I'm very depthy, and I know not everybody's like that. When you start learning about yourself, it's not just for you. Like, yes, it's really wonderful to know about yourself, but it also kind of helps you have that love and compassion that I was talking about before, that I just like want everybody to have for people. It helps you have that love and compassion for people's differences, because you can see yourself and be like, oh, this is how I operate and it feels really good. And then you can look at somebody else and be like, oh my gosh, like, how they're operating feels really good to them. And like, I don't want anything to do with that. And that's okay. But also using human design, I feel like that's a little bit more actionable than astrology. Astrology is more like predictive, where human design is more actionable, where if you just like learn your surface level stuff, you can kind of apply that, and then you just watch the rest of your human design chart kind of unfold in front of you. So getting to know yourself in these levels, super easy. I'm not even going to say though that it will resonate necessarily, because I remember pulling my, I got my astrology reading and I was like, no ma'am, this life is not about me. But also pulling my human design chart, I remember seeing that my mind is connected to my throat. So really like things that I have pretty concrete thoughts on along my path, my purpose in life, I am meant to express them. And that was like, definitely not. And terrifying. I'm supposed to speak about things. Like, what do you mean? But just unfolding over the last few years of just like slowly using my human design, it's just naturally like turned into this. You just kind of unfold into all of your gifts. So getting to know that, super easy stuff. All of that information is out there. I mean, if you want to dive into looking into it yourself, by all means, but it can get a little complex. I mean, it's super fun to look into, so you can also kind of get lost in it and not necessarily know which things to kind of start with. So definitely getting to know yourself so that you kind of have like this awareness and you start to see where you're operating out of conditioning, and then you can really start to see where things just don't quite feel right to you, where you've been taught that this is how you're supposed to feel. A lot of this is really just letting go of what you should be doing and tapping into what feels good from like a heart-centered space. And I say like from a heart-centered space because you'll also find that, again, as you kind of like dive into like doing all of this stuff with awareness, you can start to see how you've been operating from a mental, like, this is what makes me a good person, this is how I'm supposed to operate. I actually had a client who started talking about how I keep doing everything that I'm supposed to do, I'm a good person, and I could like just hear like this, like the bitterness coming out. And she had mentioned how she just has this like, doesn't want to like disappoint herself, but doesn't feel like she has been, because mentally she's like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing everything that's in alignment for a good person. After her expressing that she needed to get out, I just kind of sat there and was like, but maybe that's the point, is that you are doing what you should do as opposed to what actually feels good to you. And that is letting yourself down. You are disappointing yourself because you're not listening to like your heart-centered space. You're just doing what is being asked of you or what you've been conditioned to believe makes a good person. And she just kind of stopped and paused and was like, well, that's something to journal about. And I was like, yes. Because it's true. We have all of this conditioning. This is how you should be. This is the recipe, especially now with social media. And there's all of these recipes of wake up, do this, consistency, discipline, blah, 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 blah. You have to. This is the way for freaking success. And it's like, that was the way to success for you. And that may not even be true. There's a lot of things that are out there that aren't authentic to the person who's even speaking them. So being really careful about taking in information like that and only really playing with what resonates. It's kind of like a motto of mine at this point. It's just take what resonates and leave the freaking rest. It's okay if everything that I'm saying, you're just like, only 2 minutes of what I'm talking about like landed with you. Brilliant. I love that. If nothing lands for you, cool. Go do the opposite. Maybe that is what lands for you. If so much of it does, like play with it, dive into it, practice it. Just like kind of see and like just see it all as play and see what truly ends up resonating and leave the rest. I don't have all the answers. Again, with awareness, you kind of get to this place where it's like, I don't have all the answers, and that's okay. We're freaking humans, and we're here to experience Earth, and we're here to kind of learn and grow and play with things, you know, see what ends up feeling good. And so many of us have been just like trapped in this box of this is how you're supposed to be, and it just doesn't feel good. Everybody's kind of trying to like bust out of it. The more that you do start living from a place that feels good for you, the sad thing is that things that really aren't for you are going to start to fall away. And I think that's why a lot of people like just cling, because it's like, but this is what I know. Like, this person has been in my life for so long. What do you mean they're not going to resonate and be on this level with me anymore? So things like that can keep you stuck. But that's why like taking the baby steps is important, because it doesn't feel quite as bad as just like dropping somebody completely. You just naturally stop hanging out together. You naturally stop wanting to have certain conversations with them. And it kind of happens in a more natural way. And you might look back and be like, that's sad. But you can also look back and be like, but I loved the process that I had with them. So I feel like it's also why people kind of get stuck in where they are, because the scary thing is that so much does fall away, but then you also feel like so good, and it's this dynamic that we're not really used to. But you can live in both like super freaking happiness in one aspect of your life, and also sadness or like grief and stuff in another aspect of your life, and not really unpack and live in either state, and just kind of know that I get to experience being human. Like, how freaking cool is that? Get to experience this range of emotions. And I say that, but I know, like, feeling sad and stuff isn't ideal, but you start to appreciate it, you know? You don't really appreciate things until they've been removed for a little bit, and then you're like, oh, damn, I actually kind of miss that thing. Or it's just like, oh, you know, I've been surrounded by noise for so long, like, I actually really enjoy my own company. The dynamic, the pool, makes you appreciate things in a different way. So, being present, human design or astrology, and I would also say journaling is just super helpful. Again, these are all just super simple things, but journaling things out, and I would also say like actually writing them and not tapping on like the note section of your phone or something like that. Because when you're writing, you're actually creating the letters. There's just something to that puts you into that creative state that your subconscious really likes, where then things start to kind of come to the surface. It's fascinating when you get fully out of your mind and just kind of let things free flow a little bit. When I was starting to journal, I used to do like prompts and stuff, and I remember reading a prompt, answering it in my head, and then writing something completely different and being like, what the hell was that? But it's fascinating to see what you wrote, because it wasn't coming from like this conditioned portion of your mind. It was coming from like a more subconscious place that needed to get to the surface, whether then to like bring it into your mind to think about, or just to get it out in that sense. I've also had was journaling one time, just like getting emotions out. And as I was writing about the situation, like my hand just naturally continued on. Again, nothing from me mentally thinking about it. And I was like, oh damn, that's a pattern, and I am not repeating that pattern. And I was like, out, just out. And so journaling can be a really powerful thing, even if just in the beginning you're just brain dumping and just allowing things to just kind of get out of your head even a little bit. It's a form of expressing. I actually really love this book called Letting Go: The Pathway to Surrender. Brilliant book. I'll be talking about it probably a lot on here. But it deals a lot with emotions, and he talks about how we have like 3 different ways that really aren't that beneficial for us, where we suppress things, we repress things, or we express them. And coming from somebody who used to express her emotions all the time, I was a crier. I just like let it build up for like 4 months, and then I would explode, don't know what the hell I was crying about, and then I would feel better because, you know, you quote got it out. But really, that's not doing any good because you're not getting to the root of the problem. It's like having a cup of water sitting under a faucet that's dripping, and then you're just like dumping a little bit out once it gets too full. But the drip is still happening. So really, it's like about getting to why the drip is happening in the first place, while simultaneously working through the things so you continue to dump more water out of your cup. So I would say that journaling is a form of expressing, but it's also, I mean, we're here to take baby steps. Again, it's rough on the nervous system to be like too full force into things and diving into what things feel like. But the point of the book is to get you into your body and actually like feeling what things feel like. Because then with that awareness, you can be like, oh shit, I don't love feeling anger. You know, as a female, we're taught that anger is like, you're not supposed to feel it. And if you do, you're just crazy. So anger to me was always something that was suppressed. It felt really chaotic and just like out of control. And now I've gotten to a point where I've like looked at it and worked with it enough that it's like, oh, this is really just, it's a tool to see where either I need to set a boundary or like a boundary has been crossed, or just fuel to continue forward. Because there's definitely something to like hitting a bottom point and being like, I'm getting back out of this. You know, there's this like propulsion that can happen from that. I don't love the idea of that you have to get there. I don't believe that you have to get there. If you have the awareness, you can kind of work with things as they start to fracture a little bit. But just learning that your anger can be heart-centered fuel for whatever aspect in your life, for standing up for yourself, for your work, your job, your relationship. It's a really powerful thing, but all of that really starts with like the awareness and the acceptance, I think is the word that I'm looking for. The acceptance that it's there. Because again, so many people are like repressing their emotions, and not just anger, or guilt, or shame, their desires. All of this stuff gets repressed, and having the awareness is just like, no, it is there. That was shitty. I do feel bad. And it doesn't mean that you have to like unpack and live there. It's just allowing it to be there. And it's one of those things that, again, like so many people push down, and still working through things. I'm not going to sit here and be like, I'm so healed, because I don't think being healed is something that we can really attain. I think, again, it's just like such this ongoing process, because even as we're, quote, healing, we're still living life. We're still being people. So more stuff is happening for us to kind of play with. It just is a shift of how things feel. It's a shift of whether it's staying in your body or not. I forget where I was going with that. But yeah, you just don't have to unpack and like live in those kind of modes. And noticing, again, your awareness. If that's where you are, then like beautiful. Noticing that that's what's happening. And then also having the awareness of things that make you happy. It doesn't have to be this like, I just have all this conditioning and this doesn't feel good and that doesn't feel good. But also it does feel good. A lot of people, that's a harder question. I mean, I'm still figuring out the things that I truly enjoy. Growing up as a dancer, most of my life, like that was all I did. So coming out of being a professional dancer was like, now what? What do I actually like to do? I'm not in rehearsal. I'm not doing shows. What do I actually like to do? And figuring those things out. And again, just kind of playing with things. Trial and error. Do you really love that thing? Don't overdo it. There's still like the overdoing side of things. I love to go to trails and stuff, but I can't do that every day. I'm going to get irritated with taking my dog. There's a balance to everything, but just having the awareness of the things that also bring you joy is really important too. And it could be just scrolling on social media. Maybe that does feel really good to you. Maybe it's decompressing for you. Again, I would kind of note the things that you're taking in and seeing the effect that it might have on you, but noticing the things that also make you really happy and leaning more into those where you can in your days, where you can in your weeks. We're baby stepping here. It doesn't have to be all day, every day. Again, I've been kind of on the path with my human design. Energy type is like the basics are called, and kind of following the quote strategy, which is just your signaling and your steps to being in alignment. Playing with that. I've been playing with that for like 2 years. So I feel like I've gotten really good at it by myself. But then I get into social situations and it's like, oh, here's the next layer of it. It's just treating life as play. We love to freaking play. So where are you maybe taking things too seriously? Maybe that's something to journal about. Or things in a relationship. What do you actually want? What do you feel like is missing? And then how do we want to fix that? Is it just like a mentality shift? Is it a communication thing? You know, is it a full like we just aren't aligned anymore? All of it is okay. Again, it's not necessarily the most fun sometimes, but really getting to know you. Really getting to know you, noticing where your conditioning has come from, where you might have shame and guilt. There's a lot of shame and guilt around sex. It's bullshit. Sex is just care. Sex is just connection. That's a solid place to start. That's a depthy place to start. Maybe don't start there. I mean, there's conditioning pretty much in every aspect of our life. In relationships, you become aware of how toxic a lot of relationships are in movies and TV. It's real bad, but then it's like, this is what we're shoved with. This is what we're taught is exciting and passionate, and, you know, boring relationships are boring, but those relationships that we're shown are actually pretty freaking toxic and are not good for your nervous system and aren't going to be where you get the peace that most people are looking for. And on the topic of that coming up, like, peace is just something that you cultivate from within. If you're still looking for it from the outside, it's never going to be something that you can keep. Because if you're looking for it through someone else or through something else, it's just going to cause chaos in those things, and then it's just going to cause chaos. So peace is really something that you find within yourself, and from doing this kind of work, doing the journaling, getting to know yourself through astrology and human design, getting to know yourself through like your presence, really noticing how you feel. How do you feel when you have like your smartwatch on all the time? Do you even remember how it felt without it? You know, these are things where like suddenly everybody has access to you 24/7. The thought of that overwhelms me. I know that some people can live their life like that, and that feels really good. And again, I love that for you. Super crazy. Boggles my mind. But being able to be like, that's cool. But also, if you're somebody who's like, I don't know why I'm so anxious all the time and I have all of the stress, maybe start removing some of the outside noise just a little bit. Just a little bit. Practice the meditation. Dive into getting to know yourself. It really is just a matter of like getting to know yourself. Now, we are constantly in a state of change. It literally is the only constant in life. And embracing that can be so helpful, and just knowing it's okay. The way that we keep trying to keep ourselves kind of in this stagnant space is like giving you like this frustrated energy where it feels like this uphill battle. Where instead, if we just kind of relax a little bit and just know that we're all here to flow, and change is the constant, and going with the change just a little bit can make life feel so much easier. So I hope this gives you a little bit of nuggets about where to begin with awareness. Definitely let me know in the comments if you try some things, or if you do already like dive into astrology or human design, or if you're like, this bitch is crazy. I love to hear it. If there's anything you want me to expand on a little bit more. Truly, these are just, again, the tools that I have found that help me. I'm not going to tell you that this is going to change your life. I've been at it for a few years now, and it's still a work in progress. And again, things that work for me may not work for you, and that is a-okay. Please, please, please take what resonates and leave the rest. And definitely like and subscribe. So let me know that you like this stuff. I hope it was very, very helpful. And I will see you in the next one. Okay, bye.